This is Donald Trump, President of the United States, and you're listening to the Rick and Bubba Show.
It is 35 minutes now past the hour. Rick and Bubba, we're back, and you can reach us at 866-WE-BE-BIG, and we'll get to some phone calls before the hour is up. As promised right now, Hogan Gidley. Oh, John Hogan standing by. White House principal, deputy press secretary, and he is going to join us now on the Rick and Bubba Show. Hogan, welcome to Rick and Bubba. How are you today?
Man, I appreciate it so much. I couldn't be better. And I got to tell you, this is the first radio program I've done since I've been in the White House for 2.5 years where the hosts don't talk funny.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth, man? This is very
Welcome home, Hogan.
This is very
I know, thank you.
It's very comforting, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel so good. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, obviously, we have ourselves an issue here at the old southern border, and we've even got our TV producer. He's panicked that he's not going to be able to get avocados. We have discovered that Tom Selleck actually is growing some avocados, so we're trying to make a connection there.
Yeah, our producer, he's kind of a hipster, so that is the hipster fruit.
Hey, you tell him you can pass an avocado through those slats.
Yeah, I've never woke up ever one day and say, "Oh my gosh, no avocados." But anyway, so let's talk. I mean, obviously, desperate times call for desperate measures. What are we hearing that is hyperbole? What's going on? What's the next move?
Well, listen, the president has put all the options on the table. He doesn't want to shut down the border. But that might be his only option left. We've been talking about this problem now for 2.5 years. Barack Obama called it a humanitarian crisis in 2014 from the Rose Garden, so this isn't new. Most of y'all know that the immigration system's been broken for 40 years, and the president's just trying to fix it. Now, what we're seeing now, though, is just a completely different surge than we've ever seen in the past for really two reasons. Back during the 2000s, we had a ton of folks coming across that were male and were Mexican, so we could send them back immediately because of the relationship we have with Mexico and some laws on the books. What we're seeing now is completely different. We're seeing people come from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras predominantly, and they're women and they're children. Well, we don't have the right to send them back. In fact, what we have to do by law is basically hold them for about 20 days and then release them into American communities and your schools and your neighborhoods with virtually no paperwork whatsoever, with a veiled promise to come back in a year or so for a court date that they never come back to. So we've got a serious problem on the border, and even Jay Johnson, who was the secretary for the Department of Homeland Security under Barack Obama, said he had a bad day if the numbers got close to 1,000 in a day. We're seeing 4,000 a day, and he said that is truly a crisis. 76,000 in the month of February alone, and this last month of March. I think the number is going to be close to 100,000. And you think about that. You fill up Alabama Stadium or Auburn Stadium on a Saturday, and you just let those people out into the community with no check whatsoever. That's what that would be like doing once a month, filling it full and letting them loose. And that's a serious problem. The president's talking about doing things like closing down ports of entry to try and stop the flow. But the Mexican government has come forward and actually helped us out quite a bit in the last several days by allowing people who come here and claim asylum to actually stay in Mexico while that process until that process is adjudicated in America. And they're also stiffening up some checkpoints. They're giving us daily updates now on what's going on. So it's helping the problem. But that kind of exposes the fact that quite frankly, the Mexican government is doing more to protect this country right now than Democrats are. And we've got to get them to come to the table and actually fix something.
Hogan, just so a lot of people discussing this, I don't think fully understand some of the terminology. When you say shut the border down, you mean nothing crosses, right?
Not necessarily. What I mean is, and the president's been pretty clear about this, we have several ports of entry along the southern border, right? And right now what we have to do is we have to pull a lot of resources, a lot of folks away from law enforcement officials, away from those ports of entry and move them into the desert. Because that's where people are crossing illegally. Even though Democrats and the media have been telling you, no one crosses no one crosses where there is no law enforcement. Everyone just tries to cross at the ports of entry. Well, that's just stupid. Of course, they try to cross where the path of least resistance, where there's no one staged up to catch them. We've had to move those people away from ports of entry. What the president's saying is, when he says close down the southern border, he's talking about the ports of entry where we have people walking across in regular pedestrian pedestrian lanes, but there's also a trade component there. The president acknowledged yesterday this would absolutely hurt trade. It would hurt the economy. He's built the economy to the greatest it's been in 50, 60, 70 years. And he doesn't want to hurt the economy at all, but he was very clear, listen, I have an obligation to protect the American people and American families, and right now the safety and security of those people is more important to him than trade numbers. So there are all types of methods we could shut down that border, and that you could close a couple of lanes at a particular port of entry. You could close it all down. You could close down all the ports, part of the ports, part of the ports, if that makes any sense. So there are plenty of little methods here he could do to try and stop this flow, but the real fix has to come from Congress actually, getting up off their rears and coming to help out and solve the problem.
What, Hogan, tell us this. We had the state of emergency declared. It was upheld, and we know that this is being done. What is actually being done on the border, or where are we building? What parts of that were already scheduled to happen, and where are we building, and how much new wall, and how fast is that happening?
Absolutely. Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. We got about 51 miles of new wall being built right now, and I got to tell you, Democrats didn't want to spend a dollar on this, but President Trump has received billions of dollars now in funding, so he won that battle, and then, as you mentioned, declared the national emergency. But anywhere from El Paso to places in New Mexico, also in California, Calexico, where we just finished a section of fencing. We're going to be there tomorrow with the president, traveling down to take a look at the border firsthand. He's going to receive a briefing from DHS and Customs Border Protection and law enforcement officials on the ground who have to deal with this every day. That fencing is going up, and now we have billions of money scheduled to be spent in the next fiscal year. We're going to finish about, I think, 212 miles or so by the end of the fiscal year 2019, which is, first new fencing that's been built in 10 years. And there are a lot of places where Customs Border Protection said, listen, we know you want to build a lot of new wall across a desert, and we need that. But there are places that need to be rebuilt now. And what they had was like 18-inch high pillars in the ground to stop cars from coming across. 18 inches high is nothing to hop over. So they would pull up with their cars, drop people off, and they'd hop over. Customs Border Protection said, listen, we need fencing there now. So we tore that stuff up and put up 30-foot high wall there so no one could get across. Okay? Mm-hmm. So that part has already been completed. The new linear miles are going to be built, I think, this week, I believe, new construction starts, and we'll be talking about that, or end of this week or first of next. We'll be talking about that too. But look, the wall at the very least will funnel people to those ports of entry where we actually have a lot of folks on the ground who can actually handle the flow of the people coming across. So it's a deterrent. It's also a steerage mechanism to send people to places where they can be apprehended a whole lot easier than coming across the dead of night across the desert.
Yeah, what a concept. Talk to the people that are actually there and ask them where they need them built.
Hey, real quickly, though, what's incredible about that is Democrats said, listen, we want to hear from them. We want to hear from professionals. We don't want to hear from the White House. We don't believe you guys. We don't believe all the angel parents across the country that have seen, deaths of their loved ones because of people here illegally. We don't want to believe the ones who are telling us that their children died of opioid overdoses. Right. No, we don't want to hear any of that. We want to hear directly from CBP. And CBP told them, hey, look, here's where we need fencing. And then they left the meeting and said, nah, we're not going to do it. We still don't want to listen. We don't believe it. So it's been a very difficult road.
Yeah, and which is you guys need to make very clear going into the 2020 election. It's obvious, and anyone with just walking around sense can see it because you've already mentioned it. Obama and the Democrats have been on record that they agree that this is the problem that the Trump administration is also saying it is, but they've chosen to fight political battles as opposed to doing what's right for the country. This is a non-political issue, and they're making it political because they simply don't want the Trump administration to deliver on a promise, and they're willing to put us at risk in order to win politically, and this should be a non-political issue because both parties have agreed it's a problem.
Well, look, Democrats are standing up for hundreds of thousands of people who come here illegally and unlawfully every few months, as opposed to the hundreds of millions of American citizens. It's a watershed moment when you realize where they stand on this. They are now lock, stock, and barrel the party of open borders. That's what they're pushing. So just as we tick through kind of what we know right now, they're for definitely making America socialist. They want to kill babies after they're born. They want a Green New Deal that gets rid of cows and cars and airplanes and ruins the economy. And they're also for open borders. So this is absolutely ridiculous. They know it. It's no wonder they're trying to shift blame away from themselves and not talk about what they're for, and instead of trying to attack this president at every turn. But the American people, I think, are starting to see through this. Because, listen, we're the most generous country on the planet. We let in 1.1 million people a year to be citizens of this country. The president wants to change even that to make it more merit-based. So we have people who want to assimilate, who want to be part of this culture and society, and will contribute to this country. He wants that to change. But to pretend as though we're some kind of heartless country that Democrats will tell you we are is absolutely ridiculous. We are more generous, more compassionate than any country on the globe, and the numbers bear that out consistently every year.
Hogan, we're up against a break, but let me ask you one more question. What is the end game here for the Democrats? Are they just trying to keep the president from having a political victory that he can crow about in the next election, or is there a deeper, more sinister plan here to turn Texas more of a purple state, or what is the goal here? What is their logic?
Look, I think it's all the above, because their arguments, you said what's the logic? There is no logic other than the fact that Democrats hate being out of power. And what they did was they showed they lost an election in 2016. Then they lied to the country with no evidence and no proof. 2,800 subpoenas, 500 witnesses, 500 warrants, 40 FBI agents, 19 attorneys, and a partridge in a pear tree, all to tell us what we already knew. There was no collusion, no corruption, no obstruction, a complete and total exoneration, and they have to cling to something. So what they're looking for is, how do we build the ranks of our voters? If we just let all these people in and make illegal activity legal, then they're going to realize that we can have these voters for the rest of our lives, and they're going to prop us up and keep us in power. That's a dangerous way to look at it. The American people deserve better from our elected officials, who, by the way, like the president, took an oath of office to stand up and protect the American people first. They're not doing that, and it's pretty obvious that the things they pushed for in the past, whether it was border fencing or some type of wall or restrictions about immigrants coming into this country illegally, they wanted it in the past. The major difference is Donald Trump's in the White House, and they don't like it, and that's what they want to change.
Hogan Gidley, thanks, brother. Nice talking
to you,
to
Hogan.
White House Principal, Deputy Press Secretary. We'll be back. Final phone calls of the hour. We'll also look at any headlines we may have missed. We'll say hello to the golden ticket seats as the Rick and Bubba show continues.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.